In this video, we're going to talk about how you determine if a point is on the graph of your function. So we know, before we can really talk about that, we have to remember some things. That when you have an equation or a function, it tells you the relationship between your inputs, x's, and your outputs, y. So every point on the graph of y equals 2x would be a solution to this equation. So for example, if I choose my input to be 1, well, when I substitute a 1 in there, I would get an output of 2. So I know that the point 1, 2 has to be on the graph of y equals 2x. Well, we're talking about the same thing here, except this time when we're looking at a graph, we're just using our function notation version of output. So x is still our inputs, but now we're going to call f of x our outputs. Remember though, this is really just a fancy way of saying y. Okay, it's another way that we describe our outputs. So what we want to be able to do is say, well, if I give you a point, can you tell me if it's on the graph of my function? So let's take a look at an example. If we have the function f of x equals 2x minus 7, they want to know, is the point 3, negative 1 on the graph of this function? If it is, we know that when we put 3 in to our function, we should get negative 1 out. So let's go ahead and see if that's true. So remember, this is our x, our input. This is f of x, really, our y value. So if we substitute these values into our function, negative 1 should be equal to 2 times 3 minus 7. So as you can see, we took the x value and substituted it where there was an x. Then we took our output, which was our f of x, and substituted that where f of x belongs. So now what we're going to do is we're going to simplify this and see if we get a true statement. If we do, then 3, negative 1 is on the graph of f of x. So 2 times 3 is 6 minus 7. Negative 1 is equal to negative 1. So we get to say yes, this is on the graph, 3, negative 1 is on the graph of f of x, because when I put a 3 in, I got a negative 1 out. Now we're going to check to see if negative 2, 5 is on the graph. So again, we're going to substitute negative 2 in for x and 5 in for our f of x, because that's our output. So 5 is equal to 2 times negative 2 minus 7. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, minus 7 is negative 11. So because this is not true, this is false, that means that negative 2, 5 is not a point on the graph. Because if it was, I should have gotten a true statement. Instead, when I put negative 2 in, I got out negative 11. So that would be the point on the graph instead.